What can fire administrations and officers do to help change bias stereotypes affecting minority firefighters' diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Yeah, that's a great question. I really like what Amy said earlier about, the communities that we serve, they deserve to have a diversified workforce that reflects the diversity in the communities. The citizens do deserve that. I mean, what fire administrator and company officers can do is raise self-awareness, what I was talking about earlier, and that will help their diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. Fire company officers can teach their firefighters how bias and stereotypes interplay with their interpersonal, their communication, interpersonal skills, decisions, and hiring, firing, and even recruitment. All those things interplay, and how implicit bias really is quite damaging in the fire service. You can think of it this way: is if you are a white male, you're in the dominant group on the upside down of that pyramid, upside down triangle that I spoke about earlier. You come to work, you think about your job duties, your job description, learning maps, the equipment. That is what your focus is. If you are a minority firefighter, I don't really particularly like that word, but anyone who is not white male, you have all these bias and stereotypes that are attached to your category. Remember earlier, they're different for each group. And you can think of it this way: you have to conquer, and it's a hindrance every day that you come to on shift, and then it starts over again. It doesn't disappear. We just need to have more empathy, and look at people who don't fit that stereotype of the historic tradition, that ideology of what a firefighter is supposed to look at. We have more empathy to know that it can be quite exhausting, and a lot of people don't feel heard. I hear that a lot. We need to increase our communication. Fire administrators need to have far more self-awareness of how all this socialization interplays with their decisions, and the only way that we're going to be able to do that is to have self-awareness. And that way, when you have self-awareness, you can know how to provide equity to those individuals, because you have self-awareness. Now, the old training, I hear this a lot, is I don't see gender. I don't care if you're white, black, or brown. I don't see any of that. But the problem when you claim to be colorblind or genderblind is you don't see the bias and stereotype that is causing the problem or causing the friction that is going on. And when you do, you can provide the right type of equity support to ensure that equality. That in turn, I think, is going to make people feel more inclusive, better heard, and better supported. I think that's going to increase our diversity, equity, and inclusion in the fire service. And it's something that we have to have awareness of, and we just have to admit that it's something we need to work on, overall, all fire departments. All of us need to be working on it.
Those are some great points, Shara. I think that looking at it from having been in different ranks in the organization, I think that it's very important that as leaders, we set the example and that we really set the tone of what the expectation is. It's not something to dance around a conversation. Rather, if you see something, you need to say something. And with that, we need to be holding accountability. And I don't know that a lot of leaders or up and coming leaders understand the importance of needing to be able to have a courageous conversation. And it's important that we're not only doing this at the highest levels in holding accountability so that it's shown throughout and known throughout that that is the expectation and the standard is to not necessarily promote these biases or allow the stereotypes to be acted upon. Rather, that there's an expectation that the culture is positive and professional and embracing of all members. And I think that it's important for those who are holding accountability at the highest level to also mentor those up and coming to be able to have those conversations amongst the ranks as well. I think that it really helps to get out and train. A lot of young women that we'll see at our conferences really appreciate the atmosphere of being able to come and do some hands-on training in an atmosphere where they can fail and it's okay. And I think that we have to allow our crews to fail on the training ground and grow on the training ground in order to build that confidence and the skill set that's needed to be able to do the job that we all have to be able to do. And, I think that if we can do that within our own crew, that helps to bring a strength of unity within the group so that they see the strengths within each other and understand where they can help each other to grow in the needed areas.
I think that is so important. Reinforcement to hold accountability and for the entire team to see that there is accountability for the treatment and the bias and the stereotypes that are being projected onto people who don't fit that historical identity. I think that is so important. The research supports, it's so heavily supported that diversified teams, that these are things that it needs to be a priority in the fire service. Just there's so much research coming out of Harvard. There's some research called assimilation of the mind, meaning that people inherently just look for someone, especially in distress. You think when you called a fire truck or an ambulance, it's probably the worst day of your life. Assimilation of the mind, you look for someone like you. And what that is that you would anticipate how that person would think because they look like you, how you would be treated or why you'd be cared for them. And also research shows why people are more drawn to pick their healthcare providers also from people who look like them. Also, research shows that only 8% of women would choose a male provider as far as labor delivery or gynecology emergencies. Only 8% would prefer a male over a female. So we may be causing more stress or anxiety with the community, the people that we serve, by not being diversified or not having enough people of color represented on the fire truck or the ambulance. It needs to be a priority. The research is overwhelming.